Hello and welcome back to Let's All Laugh At, the football podcast that thrives at someone else's expense. I'm George, and I'm joined by Johnny and Dan. Today we have another guest. It's the second one in a row. This one's taken a little bit of sorting to get through as well. He is media manager at Hartlepool United, Alex Chandy. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Hello, all the listeners here. I'm very happy. It's been quite a few weeks. We've been talking over Messenger to try and get on the podcast. Obviously with COVID, and as you can imagine, the football schedule, especially in the National League, has been very hectic. But I'm glad I've been able to jump on the call with you guys to have a chat about football.
Yeah, awesome. So I suppose the first place we better start with is your media manager at Hartlepool. How did you first get into sports media? What sort of led you down this path?
It's an odd one, really. I'm only 21-year-old, so a lot of lads who are my age that are in football media, it's all about work experience at this age. So I've just graduated from Northumbria Uni in Newcastle. Got first class honours in journalism. My instant decision was to go on and do my masters in journalism, which I'm currently doing at Sunderland Uni. And just whilst I was at university, I thought, the best thing to do is get work experience everywhere you can. If anyone's listening who's, a buddy in, a sports journalist and wants to get to football media, that's all I recommend. Go out there, get experience, do whatever you can. So last year I went out to Hartlepool United, which are my local football club, National League side. Done some work experience. And then this year, the media manager ended up, moving on from the club after so many years. So all I did was, drop them a message. Didn't get a response at first. Dropped them another message, another bit of advice. Be a nuisance. I don't know whether that's a bad personality trait or not, but I always just say be a nuisance. If you don't reply the first time, keep going. And then I got brought in to do, just a few things here and there. And probably 6 months down the line now, I pretty much do everything from match days to, marketing, advertisements, and all the away trips. So, yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it.
Yeah, so a long and qualified journey for sure. Yeah, I can only echo the bit what you're saying about getting experience. Any chance you get, voluntary, like even for a couple of weeks, anything you can, even outside of football, because again, that's what they're looking for. They're looking that you want to be able to give your time up to do something that you love and show your commitment to the industry you're in.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, if you show you're committed, and you have a portfolio of work experience, then no one can say that you're not good enough to do the job because you've been out there and proven it, especially when you're given your free time to go out and do it. So that's the one thing I recommend. I know it's probably not the most interesting thing to chat about, but if there is any people out there that want to do the same thing, go out, get experience, do as much as you can whilst you can. That would be my advice.
No, absolutely. Yeah, totally echo that. And in terms of working at Hartlepool itself, obviously been a football league club for many, many years. Been in non-league 3 years or so now, I think. So how have you found non-league working as a club there, albeit a big club for the division? How have you found it working with a non-league club?
Yeah, I don't know how much you gents know about Hartlepool United. We are a big club, to be honest. That's not me just being biased. This is our fourth season in the National League. We spent, it wasn't long ago we were in the League One playoff final to go to the Championship back in 2002, playing Sheffield Wednesday. I posted something on our Twitter today. It was 10 years ago to the day we beat Brighton and Hove Albion 3-1 in a home game. But then if you look over them 10 years, where Brighton's gone and then where Hartlepool's gone, and I think that's just unfortunately that's just a sad tale of football, unfortunately. But it's a fantastic club, a big club. There's some big teams in this league. Before I started working at Hartlepool, I knew a little bit about non-league, but I wasn't. Notts County are in this league. Stockport County, who not many people know a lot about, are a very, very big team, very rich team. So it's very competitive. And the one thing that you guarantee that sometimes you don't always, I feel like you get in the Premier League and the Championship, is that you get 100% loyal fans who stick with the team no matter what, really. And always, and when you get lower down the leagues and the clubs get smaller, the fans get bigger, and they become such a bigger part of the club. I'm actually a Newcastle United fan myself, and I spent I spent 10 years as a season ticket holder at Newcastle, and I'm just one of 52,000 sat up in the Milburn stand, who I can shout all I want, but when you get down to Hartlepool's level, if you shout, usually you're heard, and I feel like that's a big difference for me when it comes to National League clubs.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've got Andrew as well on the show, who's actually a Newcastle fan. He's not here today. Unfortunately, couldn't get him for today. But yeah, you're definitely in company there, and we know about Newcastle's fortunes for sure. But in terms of non-league, yeah, I totally agree, because I have affinities with both Bromley, who are also in the National League, because I used to go there when I was younger, when Palace were away. My dad took me down to my local club. And then Bath City as well, in the National League South. They, again, we lived so far away from Palace, I don't get to go to them that often. So we just go there on a Saturday normally instead. And yeah, I get you, it is, the term proper football gets thrown around a lot nowadays, but like a proper football environment is really, because like you say, these clubs have been through so much and such hard times that you really have to be a proper fan to stick through them through all that. So I totally agree. And like you said, there's some big clubs down there as well, yourselves, Stockport, Wrexham, people like that. So it's a great balance to have almost, because you've got more established historical clubs for the level, and you've also got smaller ones trying to climb their way up. So I'm going to hand this over to Dan and Johnny now, because I've sort of been leaving them out a bit. What do you guys have to ask?
Well, I mean, I'd say with the National League, I've got a bit of affinity to Maidstone United, because I do a bit of commentary for Maidstone. Obviously not anymore in the National League, because they got relegated. But yeah, as I say, with the National League, also the standard has improved so much over the past few years. I mean, it did. I mean, probably about 5-10 years ago, it wasn't great. I mean, I must admit it wasn't great. But now, I just say there's some big teams in that league, and the football's quality. It really is quality. So what's been your favourite game?
We actually, as you mentioned, Bromley, we played them a few weeks ago in a home game. Ended up 0-0, and you know how boring 0-0 is. We talk about good quality, but it was actually a fantastic game. I mean, the thing is with the National League, I mean, I couldn't really pick out a favourite game. We went the first few games of the season unbeaten, and we only just got beat last Saturday. We got a thrashing off top of the league Torquay 5-0. You know, it took me a good week to get over that one. But when you talk about the National League, and it's very, very competitive. We went to Maidenhead and won 4-0. 4-0. We won 4-0 at Maidenhead, and ever since we played Maidenhead about 5-6 games ago now, Maidenhead have gone above us in the league. And when we played them, they were bottom of the league, and now they're 4th and we're 6th. It just shows the competitiveness and how much, as you said, the quality's got so much better, because there's players who play at the highest of levels that are now attracted to come to the National League, because it's not just your usual tin pot football. You know, there's proper teams in there, and you get to go to proper grounds. Yeah, admittedly, yeah, and I'm sure a lot of the teams admit some of their grounds, because teams that have just come up, Wealdstone, etc., their grounds probably aren't up to scratch as, let's say, Notts County. But for a team, teams like Kings Lynn that get to go to Notts County or Stockport or Victoria Park and Hartlepool, it's a huge opportunity. But favourite game, I couldn't put a finger on one of them. I hope by next May I'm saying my favourite game is the one we got promoted. But hopefully by then I'll have a better answer for you.
No worries.
From my point of view, I can just echo what everyone said. Really, the league is now full of some big clubs. Wrexham in particular. We spoke about the Ryan Reynolds situation a couple of weeks ago. And I remember a few years ago, obviously me being from my neck of the woods, Tranmere were in there for quite a long time before finally getting out and then falling away from League One again, ultimately. But yeah, no, Hartlepool, I remember, everyone knows Hartlepool from one man in particular, so I've got to ask the question. You ever met Jeff Stelling?
Wow, everyone knows Hartlepool for Mr. Jeff Stelling. Every Saturday on Soccer Saturday, we always get a good mention. He obviously is an absolute inspiration of mine, an idol of mine. Someone whose career it'd be a privilege to mirror, or even do half the stuff that he's done. A funny story, actually. Obviously, Jeff Stelling is such a huge part of me going into football media. When we played Maidenhead, that game I just mentioned, his son is actually the same age as me, Robbie Stelling, and he's obviously a big Hartlepool fan. And I dropped him a message on Twitter saying, would you like to come along and do the commentary with us for a game? It would be good to see if you're just as good as your dad. So he came along to the Maidenhead game, and as he came round the corner, I had to double take because his dad followed him into the ground. I didn't realise Jeff was coming. I nearly had a heart attack. They say never meet your heroes, but it was the complete opposite. In this occasion, he was the nicest bloke I've ever met. He chatted me for a long, long time, and then we won 4-0. I got back on the bus, and I had a follow on Twitter from Jeff Stelling, and it was the perfect day, if you say so, the very perfect day. And then that was probably about 4 weeks ago now, and since then he's DM'd me a couple of times, talking about my work situation and to tell me how much he's enjoying my content, etc. So he comes across as the nicest guy on telly, and he's the exact same in person. He's fantastic, a really, really good guy, and his son Robbie's just as good. So yeah, Jeff Stelling's fantastic. I'm so glad that he's such a part of this Hartlepool, and obviously he owns a part of Hartlepool. He's an ambassador for us, so he's still. You wouldn't think it, living down south, but he's very, very heavily involved with all the club matters.
Yeah, I say it must be quite hard for him actually, because I say most Saturdays he's in the studio, isn't he? He must do his head in. I bet he'd prefer to be at the Victoria Road, wouldn't he?
Oh, 100%. That Maidenhead game was because he was on international duty. I think international duty gets a weekend off.
Someone else does it, don't they?
Yeah. They swap presenters, so he tries to come along as many as he can, especially the ones down south. I think he's going on. So tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning, we're setting off to go to Eastleigh, which we play on Saturday. We'll stop over tomorrow night. It's a long one of the long journeys for us this season. I think it's 6 hours on the bus down to Eastleigh. But, one of the crazy things about the National League this year is because we're so far up north, and for some reason everyone else is so far down south, our closest game is Halifax, which is 101 miles away, and that's our closest game of the season. Usually what they do is they usually play. So last year our closest game was Harrogate, which is only 45 minutes away, and you play them on Boxing Day and New Year. So they give you them home and away Boxing Day and New Year, just so you can have that less stress of travelling on occasions. So with this year, Boxing Day and New Year, we're playing Halifax, which is still 101 miles away. We played Salford last weekend in the FA Cup. And it was honestly, it took us 2.5 hours to get there or something like that, and it was an absolute blessing. It sounds ages away, but it was one of the nicest journeys I've ever had.
Wow, 101 miles, that's a long way, innit?
As I said, that's our closest journey. Like, as tomorrow we're going to tomorrow we go to Eastleigh, and then this whole month is crazy. So tomorrow we're going to Eastleigh. Next Saturday we go to Yeovil, which is even further. And then they've just arranged, because it got postponed due to COVID, on the Tuesday after the Yeovil game we travel to Barnet away, which is North London. So it's. The travelling obviously isn't great, but it's such an experience. I get to go on the squad bus, and when you're a buddy football fan and a Hartlepool fan, to see all the players, and I get to be a part of all the squad stuff and the staff meetings and the squad meetings, and see Dave Challoner, our manager, really at work with the squad. I sometimes have to pinch myself a little bit and think, this job's fantastic.
Dave Challoner, when he the one for Tranmere Rovers with the long throw?
Throw in.
That's the one. That is the one. He once held the world record for the longest throw, Guinness World Record. He's a fantastic guy, and even better, manager. He came in last November, from Fylde, where he spent 8 years there. Obviously got them promoted, and he's a really, really good manager. Very much cares about his tactics and statistics, etc. A really, really good guy though, and as you said, I've seen him in training trying to teach some of the lads how to do that long throw in, but none of them have grasped it.
How does he do it? I mean, is there like a technique, or is he just? I don't know. I'd love to know how he does it.
Well, in training, he was taught when he was showing the long throw. He was saying it's not about the height, it's about the whip. And he was like, he never used to try and get a load of height on his throws. He used to just try and get distance on it, so that he would never throw it upwards. He would just throw it just a little bit above his head, and it would almost just fly like an arrow. And he's definitely been teaching the lads in training, because we've got a new striker on loan from Sheffield United called David Parkhouse, and he's just known for goals. And our game on Saturday against Salford, it's the last minute of the game, we're down 1-0, and then David Parkhouse, who you would expect in the box, who's a poacher, goes over to take the throw in, and I think, what the bloody hell's going on here? And after I've had a word with him after the game, Dave Challoner's been teaching him a few tips, and he was absolutely pelting long throw-ins into the box. I was thinking, where's this come from? with long throws, they're like a free kick, aren't they? I suppose, but we play better than a free kick, to be fair. It's incredible. I mean, the classic one's Rory Delap, isn't it? If you look at the amount of goals,
I was just about to say him.
Every time for against Arsenal, every throw-in.
Shouldn't have brought Stoke up around him, I suppose.
Every time. We just couldn't defend him.
It was always Ricardo Fuller or someone on the end of it. Wasn't it?
Yeah, or it was the other one, Diop. Was it? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Diop. There's a few others. There was always one of them on the end of it. I think Huth was there at that point, Robert Huth. And he's obviously a big lad to get on the end of it.
I'm having flashbacks now. I'm having flashbacks of.
Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have put that one up. They are just as good as a free kick sometimes, especially if they do go right. In Hartlepool's case on Saturday, I don't think it resulted from the. I can't remember the result from the throw-in, but they itself ended up going up the other end and scoring, so sometimes you have to be a little bit careful. But yeah, Dave Challoner, a really, really good manager, probably one of the best managers we've had in a long time, and the aim this season really is promotion. to get us probably back where we belong in the Football League and competing with League Two, League One sides. So, fingers crossed for Hartlepool this year, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to a more lighter subject, the pandemic, because it's ever present in our lives nowadays, and obviously a lot of talk has been made over the lower league clubs suffering and non-league clubs suffering. There's talks about how so many clubs are on the edge of going out of business all the time. Obviously, you're not like on the board of directors or anything like that, so you don't have super inside knowledge. But how have Hartlepool been handling this whole situation?
It's a crazy situation because Hartlepool, you'd probably consider one of the bigger teams in this league, and we've really struggled. A lot of staff unfortunately got made redundant at the start of the furlough period, who have been with us for a long time. Had to be let go. Serious cuts had to be made. Players had to be sold who were quality players, but probably on a little bit too much money. Thankfully, we've got the grant in, but just go back to Jeff Stelling. I had a conversation with him. I done an interview with him. That's published on YouTube at the very beginning of the first lockdown, and after our conversation, he told me that one home game costs around 15 grand just to put on the game, just for one home game. And without fans, how clubs like Hartlepool, and even when you look down at the smaller clubs, as I mentioned, Kings Lynn and all the other little teams, no disrespect to them, but how are they affording to put a 15 grand game on every other Saturday? And obviously away games, it's not as much as 15 grand because you still have to pay for the bus going down, the overnight stay if you stay in the night before, the meals, it's a few grand goes into every single game. But thankfully, for Hartlepool, we've come out the other end. We've got a fantastic chairman who saved the club a few years ago from going bust, really. And he bought the club for £1, but took on 2 million worth of debt, paid it all off, and has really put into the team and put into Dave Chandler and trusts him. So thankfully, we've come out the other end all right. But just football's just not the same without fans. You watch these Premier League games, and obviously the crowd noises are, they're all right, to be fair. And a lot of Premier League clubs can cope really well. But as we spoke about non-league clubs, fans are really the heart of non-league. And to have no fans in the ground, it's devastating. We can only fit 7,000 in our stadium, and usually we only get around 5.5. But you don't realise the impact 5,500 people making the noise that they can make in a ground. It's like, as mentioned, Bromley. We played Bromley the other week on a Tuesday night, and it was 0-0. And I honestly believe if fans were in the ground, we would have won that game, because I think they really would have pushed them on a little bit to get that winning goal. But yeah, as you say, the pandemic, it's really took its effects. We've had this rearranged Barnet game's been called off 3 times now. I know other teams have really struggled as well to get games on, but thankfully no club has gone bust in this league. Touch wood, that doesn't happen. But yeah, it's a tough one, but hopefully, thankfully now the government's given some sort of grants and funding to each team. We can come back out the other end stronger.
Yeah, hopefully. Because was it the FA Cup a few weeks ago? It was like levels 3 to 6 could have fans, but National League couldn't have fans if they're playing away. It was quite strange, wasn't it? It
was absolutely crazy. So we entered the FA Cup in the 4th qualifying round, which is the last qualifying round of the FA Cup before you go into the first proper. And we went to Ilkeston away, which is in Derbyshire, and they were allowed fans due to the league that they were in. I think there was 600 people there, and if you see some of the pictures, they're on Twitter and etc. You meant to stick to 6 people in a bubble or in a group to where you were standing in the ground. There was nothing like that going on. They really did host fantastic Ilkeston, but there's only so much they can do, and it's absolutely crazy that if they are able to do that, why can't Hartlepool, who have the funds, to get proper security teams in, proper measurements in, proper safety stuff in to do it? Why are we not allowed, even a capacity 2,500 fans in our ground? We've got a 7,000 seater stadium. I'm sure you can fit 2,500 fans in, separated around the ground. It absolutely blows my mind that it hasn't been allowed, and especially when our stadium's next door to a cinema. And the cinema was advertising that you could go in the cinema and watch Premier League games live.
Yeah. That must have felt like such a kick in the teeth, yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. And, there was another one that came out. I can't remember which club it was. It was a National League club in our league that were allowed, because obviously every National League team is streaming the games.
Yeah.
They were allowed to stream the game live from their clubhouse.
I've seen that, yeah.
I forget who it was, but we did cover it on the show, yeah, I think.
Yeah, but they had to have the curtains closed, because if you open the curtains, you can watch the game live.
Madness, isn't it?
It's absolutely mental. How you meant to fit 60 lads into a clubhouse, all drinking, all using glasses that other people have used, when there's a 5,000 seater stadium outside that you can go sit in and watch. So yeah, it's mental, but rules are rules, I suppose. And if we manage to get back on the grounds before the end of the season, that'd be fantastic. I have a lot of mates who are Hartlepool fans, and obviously I go to every single game to cover Hartlepool for Twitter and our commentary, etc. And it's honestly like a lucky golden ticket to get into the match. I have lads messaging me all the time asking me if they can get a seat somehow or get a ticket somehow. Obviously I kind of give them out, and it's crazy because I'm only one of probably 30 people in the stadium at the time. So, like, to be able to watch football, I'm in a very privileged position to be able to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like you say, when you close the curtains and you're not violating the law, and then you open them and you suddenly are. I mean, it's just, it is mad. And I really think that, like you say, there's got to be some middle ground to this where you can get 1,000, 1,500 fans in the ground. Or I can understand in standing areas it's a bit harder because it's hard to spread fans out. But in all seater like Hartlepool, there's surely got to be a solution. But maybe it's just you want to be fair to everyone. But either way, I still think there's things for it. So moving on, we are sort of sticking with a non-league theme quickly. I want to go to our game of the week. We each pick a game from any league at all that we just enjoyed that we wouldn't talk about normally, so we can bring up. I don't think, and as it's the FA Cup first round last weekend, I don't think there's any more fitting game for me to bring up. We mentioned Torquay before. Torquay 5, Crawley Town 6. I mean, what an unbelievable game. 3 goals in the 90 plus 14, 18 and 21 minutes to take it to extra time. And then about 4 or 5 goals after that in extra time. I mean, I watched the highlights back. I mean, I only wish I could have, again, it's just a shame that all years fans couldn't have been there, but it's just another classic FA Cup tie.
Yeah, it's incredible. It was incredible, actually.
It just shows the magic of the FA Cup, I think, and the magic of teams, and National League teams. It's an incredible, especially Torquay, who battered us, 5-0 the week before, to go and score another 5 goals and get beat. I mean, imagine scoring 5 goals and still getting beat. You can't make it up. And if I was a Torquay fan, I'd be losing me lid a little bit, I think.
Bit less sympathy after last week and the weekend before, though. Now.
100%. They're all good people. I met a few of their lads, media lads especially. They're really, 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 really good lads. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was cheering on Torquay. I will be for the rest of the season. But yeah, that's the magic of the FA Cup. Really, there was a few games in over that weekend that was crazy. Even though there are bitter rivals, Darlington ended up beating. Apologies, it's just gone out my head, but a National League side, and have gone through the first round. So like it's the FA Cup, anything can happen. Fortunately, we couldn't get a result against Salford, who had a new manager that game and they were a good team. But that Torquay game, absolutely crazy, really, really crazy.
Yeah. The game I would choose is Wigan 2, Chorley 3. I mean,
I was just about to bring that up as well. Yeah, I'm glad you got there before me because I didn't want to ruin it for you.
I'm a big side player, and when Wigan went 2-0 up, I was thinking it's gonna be 3 or 4. But then out of 10 men, and Chorley, fair play to them, they were fantastic in that game. And when they got the third goal, I'm not a Chorley fan, but even I celebrated because it was just like, wow, what a brilliant comeback! It's a great game as well, great for it was the FA Cup. We all love it, and that is why we love it because of results like that.
Arsenal love the FA Cup, I'm shocked.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, it'll be Marine. Marine made it through to the second round of the FA Cup. And they're from behind me again, obviously, so it's a local theme. But they're like, 8th tier, if that. They're really, properly low down. And they've got a former Liverpool player as well, David Raven, playing for them these days. And I think they've drawn Havant and Waterlooville in the second round. So they've got half a chance of making it through to the third round there.
That's the best thing about the FA Cup, seeing these little teams, go on these runs. If you look at Bradford from all them years ago when they got to the final against Swansea, just some of the runs that you see. Was it Lincoln a few years ago went on that fantastic run with the 2 twin brothers as their managers? Yeah, it's a fantastic competition, and people don't realise how important it is for us lower league teams. Even lower than Hartlepool. When you said look at Marine and the funding that it brings in, obviously the funding. Unfortunately, in this modern game, we have to say is the most important part of it. But obviously, the experience for the players, whether it's Marine, whether it's Darlington, Hartlepool, whoever, is second to none. And you know, as you said, if Marine beats Hampton Watt, you know, they could draw a Premier League side. So
yeah, comfortably, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I suppose we might as well move on to the Let's All Laugh At then. So we'll start with you, Dan. What have you got for this week?
Well, I haven't been on for a while. I won't
Yeah.
go too far back because I've just about got over that Merseyside derby we watched. And I mean just about. God, it's been a traumatic few weeks for us. But mine, I'll go with Ademola Lookman in that penalty, please. What on earth?
wow.
What was that?
Did you see Scott Parker's reaction after?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you would love to be a fly on the wall in that dressing room. Wow. The absolute audacity. I understand he's a young lad with a bit of flair, and a lot of people do it. I do get it in a way, and if it went in, you know, because he's probably not even just looking at Fulham. He's probably looking at his own career. If it goes in, then you've probably got teams looking at him thinking, bloody hell, you've got some balls.
Yeah.
But, the fact that they're bottom of the league, fighting relegation, and he pulls that out in the 98th minute, crazy.
It's such a poor decision from the kid, it really. And I get what you say about the way he plays and his own future, but God, they need the points desperately, and he's done that. It's not even the fact he's tried that. He hasn't even executed that very well. He's got nothing on the ball at all.
Yeah, no, it was. I can't believe I was watching when I watched it. I was thinking, just smash it down the middle, and it was just such a bad penalty. It was awful.
Yeah, me and Johnny were actually talking about this last night on his show. We'll leave the link in the description as always. But I was saying that, like you said, Alex, he is a young lad. You know, he's just trying to show off. He's trying to do his bit of flair. But he does have to learn that when you're in a relegation battle, you need the points, get a penalty in the last minute. You've got to make the most of it, and I'm sure he'll learn from it, and I'm sure his manager will make sure that he learns from it. But who's decided that he's taking the penalty? I'm not sure who was on the pitch at the time, but I don't know whether Mitrovic was on the pitch, obviously former Newcastle player. But who's decided that he's taking the penalty? It was Tom Kearney on the pitch at the time. I'm not quite sure.
I like Tom Kearney, and he's the captain, and he's decent in terms of set pieces and balls. I thought he's got to be the one.
I think Mitrovic was injured. I think, and that's why I think Lippman was second. I don't know. Yeah, but it was just a.
I mean, even if Mitrovic is injured, or even if Kearney's not even on the pitch, surely you've got more senior player. I mean, the fact that if Lookman's gone and just pick the ball up, fair enough to the kid, you know. And if he puts a top corner, then fair enough, you know. It's really good. But surely Scott Parker is thinking in his head, someone else must be taking this, someone more senior.
Yeah, no, definitely. And he did not look happy, did he? I mean, yeah, say on the wall. God, he did not look happy.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, I hate to ask you for your nomination now because I'm pretty sure yours has been ruined. But have you got any others?
I mean, that was my one. So I'm gonna have to rack my brain a little bit. I guess it'd be Dan's mate Jordan Pickford again for the silly little kick on Maguire the other day. And it was just, and then it was Seamus Coleman's reaction as well, calling Maguire a diving twat. Made me laugh. It did make me laugh. He ran over to him, and then he was like, "Get up, you diving twat!" And it was like, he got kicked. Come on, Seamus.
Bringing Jordan Pickford up with Alex here is a good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of that.
He's certainly a character. I remember 2 seasons ago, Everton versus
Newcastle.
Newcastle.
I remember it well.
I remember that too, yeah.
I was there, and Everton go 2-0 up, and he turns to us and starts laughing his head off. And the game finishes 3-2, and there's a video someone took, and they're just above the dugout as he's walking off with his cocky, you know, shoulders out, walking off, giving him all the abuse he can get, and he's absolutely furious. But do you know what? As much as he's a Sunderland lad, and obviously, I think he is a little bit of a twat. But like, I do think it's unfortunate the period that he's going through. When it comes to England and people say he should be dropped, I completely disagree because I don't think he's ever had a bad game for England. And I think he should be England's number one until he does have a bad game. And then you've got the likes of Henderson, Pope, or whatever, you know, coming through. Or you could throw, you know, Newcastle's Carl Darlow into the mix if you're really optimistic. But it's unfortunate. I actually went to Goodison Park in that same season, and it finished Everton 1, Newcastle 1. I think Richarlison scored for Everton and Salomon Rondon scored for Newcastle. And the amount of abuse that he got from us was crazy. You know, I hold my hands up and say I was a part of it. But yeah, I do genuinely think that he's a good keeper. He's just going through a rough patch, and I genuinely hope that he comes out the better side of it, because for England, I think he's fantastic.
You call him a character. I'm sure Dan could call him something else. Give him with C.
Quite happily.
Yeah, well, we'll keep this. I know we've used used twat already, but we'll keep it relatively PG other than that. But in terms of it's an interesting point you raised about England, because I think you're right. I think that Pickford, I can't remember him, all the howls I can remember him making are for Everton. I'm not necessarily saying he's been brilliant for England, but he's never quite hit the awful lows that we've seen in Everton either. And I think the same thing similar with Harry Maguire as well. I know he's had a couple of bad games like the sending off he had before. But also for like the year, like literally a month before the World Cup, his Leicester side got spanked 5-0 by Palace, who infamously went the first 7 games without a point and a goal. So we actually scored more goals in that one game against him than we did in the first 11 matches of the season. And then he's scoring in the quarterfinals and doing well for us. So it is a bit of a chasm sometimes, and we see it the other way around too, with players doing well for their clubs and then not doing well on the national stage. But yeah, for my nomination, it might sound a little bit harsh, but it does relate to your club a little bit, Dan. But I've gone for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his post-match interview against Everton, where he complains about the scheduling in games and how teams have got so many injuries, and basically lamenting the fact they didn't introduce the 5-sub rule. And I know we've discussed the 5-sub rule on this show, and Dan has made some good arguments, not necessarily because he's in favour of it, but making some good pro arguments for it. But I just feel like, Manchester United are, in my opinion, the biggest club in England historically. And, you've got Liverpool as well, who are the league winners and up there with Man United as the top 2, in my opinion. They have all the resources in the world they need to buy whatever players they need to bolster their squad. And they have world-class facilities as well, for things like their academies and such. Like, if you're not preparing, you've got Champions League games to play on a Tuesday or Wednesday sometimes. You know what you've got to go through. You know all this before the season even starts. You should be using that to prepare your squad as best you can for the things you have to do. I understand it can be unfair, but I mean, look at Alex's Hartlepool. Well, they, like you said, they have to go to ridiculous places like Eastleigh and Yeovil with next to no budget, and they struggle, but they get on with it. So it's ultimately the 5-sub rule is going to benefit the big clubs more, because there's not necessarily that much depth in their team compared to the players they already have on the pitch. But for dealing with 80% of the teams in the league, their benches are going to be more than enough to deal with them. So I just think the whole thing, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it, Dan, but I just think the whole thing is throwing his toys out the pram a little bit, personally.
I agree with a lot of the sentiment there. I actually didn't agree with Solskjaer in terms of his argument, because his argument was based on turnaround from Europe, and that's always been a thing. That's not new. Like, what they had to do last week wasn't particularly different than most seasons. Like, teams in Europa League in particular get back, I imagine, first thing Friday morning and play Sunday morning. That wasn't that mad. The only thing I would say, obviously, Jurgen Klopp, my team's manager, is a big advocate of the 5 subs. If you look at what's going on, God, I don't even want to talk about it. If you look at what's going on from an injury point of view at the minute, there's got to be something in it that means something isn't right. Like, teams all over the place, players all over the place are picking up a hell of a lot of injuries. I seen Nathan Ake came off yesterday for Holland. It's constant, and it tends to be muscle things. We had Trent come off the other day for us, as well as all the Gomez stuff, So it has been pretty relentless, this schedule, since they came back. Like, I think Dejan Lovren tweeted or Instagram said he's had like 8 days off. I mean, I'd argue he had about 5 years off personally. But if that's all he's having off, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for footballers generally because of how well they're enumerated and how nice their lives are and how the facilities are, certainly at the levels we're talking about. And you're right to mention like lower league teams who just get on with it. And I seen somebody tweet yesterday that Mark Hughes once played 2 games in a day.
He did, yeah.
He played for Wales and then Bayern Munich later on that night. So if you look at lower league and the olden days, it was just a normal thing. I do get that. But having said all of that, there's a hell of a lot of injuries occurring at the minute. And I want to see like the top level of football at the Premier League. And if every week we're losing players to COVID or hamstring or calves, which we are, then we're not going to get that. Like, in a few weeks' time, around Christmas when it gets really hectic, teams are going to be, their squads are going to be thin. Ours in particular at the minute. I'm not even sure, like I said before, I'm not even sure if it is an advantage to bigger clubs, because, say for instance, you were Palace, for argument's sake, against Man City, and you'd held on for an hour at 0-0.
Yeah.
And you can bring on 3 or 4 fresh-legged players after they've been run ragged. That's not a bad thing for Palace, if that makes sense. Like, I get both sides of the argument in terms of who it favours most. So it's a difficult one, but everywhere in Europe's doing it and we're not, so why are we so special?
Yeah, some good points. I think that again, but the only thing is it's down to a vote. The club's voted against it, so that's where it should stay. But we'll touch on Liverpool very quickly because it's been a long time since I had you on the pod. I want you to have a say. Obviously the injuries is the main thing from Harting for Liverpool, and it is a very bad list. But how have you found the last few weeks?
Do you know what? Injuries aside, actually really positive. I thought we dealt with the injuries prior to the Gomez one because obviously it's so fresh. I thought we dealt with them really well. We've changed style a lot. We had a very high line when Van Dijk was there, and we've dropped a lot deeper since. Probably because he orchestrated that high line, and we can't do it without him. In terms of how we go forward, we just need Matip and Fabinho to stay fit. I think we'll be okay. We need to get to January in as best shape as we can. I've said before on here, it's not going to be 90-odd points that wins this league. It's going to be more like high 70s, maybe 80. So I still think we can achieve that even without the two centre-backs that we started the season with. I still think that's possible. The football's going to be a lot different. I think we might have to outscore a lot of teams. But if we carry on with that attacking four from last weekend, then that's possible. It's gutting. There's no getting away from it. I can't be positive when Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk are probably out for the season. It doesn't get much worse than that in terms of Liverpool. So, yeah, it's shit, but if anyone can deal with it, I reckon it's this bunch of players. So if we end up going close or even winning the thing, then what an effort that would be.
Yeah, for sure. So last but not least, that leaves you, Alex. I'm interested to hear what you've got from the world of non-league or lower league, potentially.
Actually, mine. I had a few things actually, just quickly on non-leagues. I know that is my main interest, but my thing with non-league is initiations, and they do it all around the country. Every football team does it. But for some reason, non-league teams and lower league teams always have the best initiations for some reason, player initiations, and especially when it comes to singing performances. So we've had ours recently. You can check them out on the Hartlepool United YouTube. That's me doing a horrible little plug. But some of our singing initiations have been absolutely fantastic, and lads really, really go for it. But that was just one little non-league. The two main ones I had was firstly Jose Mourinho's Instagram.
Oh, brilliant.
Because it's been trending a little bit recently. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's absolutely fantastic. The ones of him sat on the plane reading, the one when they got beat in Europe and he sat on the bus waiting for the players.
That's the one. Like,
it's absolutely cracking. And what a character. I really, really like Jose Mourinho. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's really, really good. And the final one, not really much of a funny one, but just an absolutely mental one. Obviously, the international games are going on at the moment, and Italy played last night. And I found out, even through COVID, Italy selected 41 players. 41 players to go play 2 games. It's absolutely mental in my eyes. During COVID, to send 41 lads from around the world to go play international...
Gives the phrase strength in depth a whole new meaning, doesn't it?
Oh, my gosh. Surely, at least 9 of them lads are not even getting a sniff of football.
Yeah. And it's almost irresponsible, isn't it? 41 players. It's a little bit irresponsible. Take 24, take 23 or 24. Or either take 30. 41's a bit excessive, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely mental. I mean, I'd love to know the other numbers for other international squads. I mean, I don't know them myself, but to take 41 Italians, if you're one of them lads who you know is not going to get many minutes, who's just being called up as a fringe player, you must be thinking, do I really have to go? Do I really need to travel thousands of miles across the world to go sit on a bench or like even sit in a stand? Oh, mental. But yeah, those were my funny moments of the last few weeks.
Speaking of it, is Balotelli still there? Is he still about, Balotelli? Anyone knows?
He's currently on trial at. I read this recently. He's currently on trial at a third division Italian club.
Is he?
It could have been in court, but he's on trial. To be fair, then.
Yeah.
How the mighty have fallen. Yeah, speaking of international management, I just remembered one nominee I've got to give, Mr. Frank de Boer. Yeah, the lost is officially the worst start ever as Netherlands manager. No wins in his first 4 games. Mourinho himself called in the worst manager in Premier League history. Not sure what they were expecting, to be honest, but thoroughly enjoyed that. But as for our winner, I think since both of us people want to nominate it, and we've talked about it a fair bit, I think Lookman's penalty's got to win. I think that's just quite clear, personally. Yeah, I'm sure he'll, if anything, this will reinforce to him the lessons he has to learn from that night. But anyways, yeah, so that's about all the time we've got for. So before we leave, Alex, you mentioned Hartlepool YouTube, and plugging yourself. Where else can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me Alex Chandy, just simply my name, at Alex Chandy on Twitter, just tweeting all things football and Hartlepool United. You usually see, if you follow Hartlepool as well, usually Hartlepool tweet, and then 30 seconds later you see me reacting to what I've put on Hartlepool's Twitter. It's a very sad life that I live, but it's almost as I'm talking to myself. But yeah, you can find me at Alex Chandy, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and as I said, all my Hartlepool United stuff, including an interview with Jeff Stelling. We do quiz games with the Hartlepool lads and away trip vlogs, all on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much for everything, lads.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thank
Cheers,
you.
mate.
Yeah, you think that's sad? Try doing it with a podcast channel with 20 followers. That's something different right there. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. It's been a really great time. It's a pleasure to have you. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. And yeah, thank you all for listening to this episode. Be sure to drop us a like and a follow, whatever platform you're on. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Let's All Laugh at a Football Podcast, as well as Twitter at LALA_podcast. Be sure to check out Dan's work on Last Word on Sport and Read Liverpool. Be sure to check out Life's a Pitch, where you can find myself and Johnny on the latest episode. I know we normally talk about Palace and Arsenal. Didn't have time this time. You can hear us talk about both of our teams on that show, so be sure to check it out. Thanks to Dan and Johnny for joining me as always. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.